It's late night in the heartland. Good to see you. Good to hear you. Glad everybody's here tonight. I apologize for the little bit of a tardy start. I had to do the sauna, had to do the plunge. You know, you got to do it. You got to do it or it just won't work, ladies and gentlemen. So I see that Bill is standing by. He went away just for a second. I hope that, he went off with his camera. That's fine. Bill, we'll get right to you in just 1 second. I want to introduce you. I want to let people know that we've got some great stuff coming up the rest of the week. Tomorrow night, we'll have with us Mike King of realhistorychan.com. Of course, he's talked a lot about the history of World War II. Tomorrow night, we're going to talk about Joe McCarthy. And what you think you know about Joe McCarthy, you may not know about Joe McCarthy. Thursday night, we'll be talking about Dark Trump. It's going to be a tough one, but we have to take a look at all the realities and all the possibilities. And then Friday night, it'll be Classic Conspiracy. Friday night, Classic Conspiracies. We're going to look at Art Bell and Bill Cooper. So that's what we've got coming up the rest of the week. We've also got some great programming coming up for you next week. I'll be doing some traveling. So we'll be coming to you live from Nashville, Tennessee. We'll be coming to you live from Florida. We're going to be doing some fun stuff, some interesting stuff. May even be going by the Georgia Guidestones. I don't find them all that interesting, but I know a lot of you do. So, and we may go to a place that figured large in the Ted Bundy saga as well. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I know Bill Lee because he's one of the nation's foremost voice-over artists or voice talents. My best friend Gary Bridges uses him exclusively in all of his productions, be it video, be it audio, be it stage, or even television and motion picture. And I didn't know that Bill was an expert on Bigfoot, but we are about to find out. So if Bill sounds familiar to you, you've probably heard his voice somewhere before. So, Bill, go ahead and get yourself situated how you want to be. If you don't want to be on the camera, that's fine, because we're going to go ahead and bring you right on into the studio now with our audience. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I believe Bill's sitting out by a campfire. Bill, can you hear me?
Bill, I can hear you. It's a little broken up. Can you hear me okay? I'm out in the country.
Oh, I can hear you perfectly fine. We can't hardly see
you. Can you hear me okay?
Right. We can hear you perfectly.
I'm outside. There's a bit of a wind out here tonight, and I'm worried about that. So I've got my car nearby in case I have to duck into the car where I have notes. But I'm ready, willing, and able, and can go without notes. I'm excited. This is brand new. I haven't done this in a while, and I'm honored to be on.
Well, Bill, you sound great, and it just looks kind of funny, but that's all right. It kind of adds to the mystique of the whole Bigfoot thing. Let's start off in a little weird way. I don't know if I've told you this story. I know we've talked on the phone a few times, but I'll tell you about my one and only Bigfoot / skunk ape encounter, and you can kind of react to that and then just take the reins and talk to us. That's much better. Talk to us about what you know about Bigfoot and give us what I think is your rather unique perspective. So one time in Central Florida when I was in high school, my dad and I used to make many a late night trip from the Tampa Bay area up to the Orlando area, and we drive through some rural woods, rural roads. And one time my dad had to go to the bathroom, so he pulled off onto the side of the road, and he went off into the woods to do his business. And I was sitting there with a pizza on my lap because we were eating pizza on the drive. And as my dad's in the woods at the kind of the edge of the headlights of our car, out walks what I would soon find out is called in Florida a skunk ape. He was probably 7 feet tall. He was scraggly. He was hairy, had some bits of stuff kind of caught in his fur. But he stopped and he looked at me and he kind of, smelled the air because I guess he smelled the pizza. And then about that time, my dad walks out of the woods and the skunk ape looks at my dad. He looks at me. And I swear, Bill, it's like he shrugged his shoulders, but I don't think he really did. And he just kind of sauntered across the freeway into the median, which was a huge median, had a bunch of big woods on it. And I never saw him again. But for a few seconds there, I thought sure he was coming after me and he was going to get that pizza. So that is all I know about Bigfoot, Bill. And I know that you have a much more esoteric and a much more interesting take on it. So with that, tell us a little bit about who you are, however you want to fill us in, and talk to us about the world of Bigfoot according to Bill Lee.
I appreciate that, Jeffrey. And the signal gets really weird when I get inside the car. And so I'm going to stand outside here where the picture of me is a little different, but it's going to be clearer. And gosh, my journey, I think about this all the time, how to talk to people. And most of that came during podcast from 2011 to 2014, inspired by Bigfoot. And that's where I got to meet a lot of the movers and shakers as far as the paranormal and psychic aspect of the Sasquatch people. And that's where my whole world, it really got turned upside down, but not in a bad way. And it didn't cause me to take my belief system and toss it. And so it's changed my view. And I've had things happen in the woods across from where I'm standing right now that have just blown me away, that have happened since I've hosted this show and haven't talked publicly. And I'm actually prepared to share tonight with you words, direct quotes from the Sasquatch people. And I have to give you a disclaimer at the top. And I didn't expect this to happen so quick. If I get emotional, it's because they're leaning on my feelings. I have a connection with them that I'm still trying to understand. It goes through my feelings. And I wanted to tell you that ahead of time so you wouldn't think that I'm...
Bill, just to interrupt you to try to set the scene, because I'm not sure.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So you actually have a connection when you say the Sasquatch people, you mean the Sasquatch race, right? And they communicate with you.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It's through my emotions, and I knew a woman that I had on the show who, in sacred session, when she was like practically with them,
Yeah, we're having a lot of trouble with audio.
I was interested in that. So I put her on.
Yeah, it's really bad, Bill. Darn it.
Does that make sense?
Well, we just lost almost everything you said. Your audio got completely indiscernible there for a few minutes.
Does this help?
Well, you're clear as a bell right now.
I'm in the country, and okay, I'm going to stand here in the dark, and I'm going to look even more mysterious, but I can go without any of the notes. I know all of this out of my head. There may be a breeze from the phone, but my communication with them is through my emotions. And because I put Kathleen on the show and got to know them, I was able to ask them questions that they answered, and I got my mind blown by what came back, is what I'm trying to say. And I can tell you some things that have to do with what's going on in the world right now that they called back in 2013 ahead of time, that's going on right now.
That's amazing, Bill. Please do so.
Did you get the part about my emotions and if I get emotional?
We did, and they communicate to you through your emotions, and many times it can get to a point where it's almost overwhelming to you.
Yes. So if that happens, that's what's cooking. I'm still trying to understand this, but I'm a professional public speaker, and I'm not afraid to put myself out there and do this, to kind of be a lightning rod, because the truth it trumps everything. In 2013 on the show, in one of these sessions, they mentioned upcoming earth changes. And this was in 2013. And my first thought was that would be military or environmental. I never thought pandemic or disease. And here we are 7-8 years later, and I'm like, it hit me like a ton of bricks about 8 months ago. I thought, wait a minute, I remember them specifically saying back then to Kathleen, she was an interspecies communicator, a shamanic practitioner, Kathleen Greavy Odom. She's passed away, but helped me immensely understand them. And they called this in 2013. I never thought in terms of pandemic. So here we are. And I'm like, wait a minute, could this be the upcoming earth changes that they talked about and what is yet to come? So that's one thing I wanted to add. Wouldn't you agree? And I don't know that we've seen the last of what's happening, but if what's going on now doesn't qualify as an earth change, I don't know what does.
You know, Bill, that is amazing because it certainly does qualify as an earth change. And if we step back a minute and we get a little bit conspiratorial, because that's what we do. If we look at this pandemic and if we look at the vaccine and we start to look at what the vaccine is doing to people, and some have even speculated, and we're going to talk about this on another night, that the vaccine itself may actually be a transhuman type of a carrier system. So we may just be beginning to see the earth changes, and your Sasquatch friends have certainly called it, and we may not even understand to the degree which they've called it even yet.
Right. And so that's why I think what is yet to come, because this hit me the other day with all the unrest and disagreement over the recent election, everybody's going to be watching 2024, and no matter what happens, a lot of people will be angry. And if justice isn't served, depending on what side you're on, what if that tips it and then causes our adversaries across the world, if we get embroiled in internal fighting, adversaries who might not have moved on neighbors might then move, and even on us, and that could create the cataclysmic earth changes that they may indeed be talking about. Maybe this is just the warm-up.
It very well could be.
I don't know. Just theory. That's all it is theory. I'm always thinking.
Absolutely. So continue on,
they also,
Bill.
in that session, I can't find the entire session.
And I don't have you on the screen
it stops and makes you think. And this has affected me in a way.
Yeah, I don't have you on the visual anymore, so don't worry about how you hear. Just concentrate on the audio, and you're sounding great. So go ahead and continue on.
Okay. I appreciate that. Another thing they mentioned in the session, I asked them a really heavy question that I'm proud to have had the courage to ask, having grown up. A quick background on myself: grew up in the church. I believe in God. I've been touched by the Holy Spirit in the same exact way that I've been touched by the Sasquatch people in two different arenas, completely different arenas. Same exact feeling. I'll get to that in a minute. I asked them, would I see them when I crossed over? And their answer was yes, but why wait until then? So that was heavy for me. They told me things about me that I never told Kathleen. When I asked them the 5 questions, basically asking, what can I do to help you? And just as someone who reads the Bible can't pick and choose or cherry pick what they're going to believe, I couldn't cherry pick the raw, unedited words that came back from the Sasquatch people via Kathleen, and things about me that I never told her. Not bad things, but things they told me I needed to do. One thing I needed to do to have clearer communication with them, and that's remove a coat around my heart that I use for protection because I'm hypersensitive, especially to animals, cats, even more than dogs. And because of that, I'm on guard for hard-hearted people, guys and girls. And They see that as protection that is not necessary, and in fact told Kathleen that I need to remove the coat to have clearer communication, which is right now the only communication is through my emotions. But it's as if they're standing next to me, rooting for me, cheering me on for saying what I'm saying, because I don't sound like a professional broadcaster right now. This is not a script. This is from the heart. This is I've been waiting. You calling me blew my mind, because I've been thinking lately, I have a message and I've got to get it out. And I'm not a fear seller. I hate that. I fear a mother grizzly. I fear a great white shark. I fear a grizzly bear. I don't fear stuff that will happen when I pass. I'm too soft-hearted to think that there's some fiery hell waiting for something that soft. It's a contradiction that I don't get. And they have, in essence, told me I have to become even softer before they move closer, which tells me they are not bad. And I already knew that. But what do you do with something like that? And that's just the tip of the iceberg. You remember Justin Smayha?
I do. And
have
Bill,
you heard of him?
Bill, what do you do with that advice, which tells you become softer so you can become more empathetic? My wife has already said that you're hugely empathetic, and all of your rationale and all of the wisdom of this world tells you protect yourself, be strong. And yet these other beings and trying to communicate to you world-changing knowledge are saying the opposite.
Exactly. And that coat serves me perfectly with my fellow man, because in essence, in layman's speak, it's like I'm a soft-hearted guy and I will pet cats in a way that'll make big burly men feel uncomfortable, but don't make fun of me, big guy, or I'll kick your ASS. They don't want to hear that. Dr. Matthew Johnson, the first thing he'll tell you if you go looking for them is if you're an ASSHOLE, you won't find them. They don't like mean-spirited people. And
which explains why most of these Bigfoot hunters never find them.
I'm sorry, what was that?
And that already explains to me why most of these Bigfoot hunters never find them.
I'm sorry that the connection gets a little funky out here in the country. If that's the case, what were you asking?
I was just making the statement that explanation you gave already explains to me why most of these quote unquote Bigfoot hunters never find a Bigfoot.
No, and that's perfect segue for me to invite any television producer who's watching or listening to this to contact me and let me go out in the woods and do what has not been done and is currently not being done to make contact. Because if they have a message for humanity, and they do, it's a big long one that says who they are and who we are genetically. And I can tell you that tonight on the show, who we are and who they are, genetically speaking. But it has to go through the heart. It can't go through the head with technology. You have to basically say, I'm coming your way. You have a message for people. If you want to deliver it, you already know me. Then this is your chance. Speak it to me in my head. I'll relay it to the people. I just get the feeling that's not what TV wants. And what they're currently doing, I don't remember the name of the show, The Woman Anthropologist, they do a pretty good job.
We just lost Bill completely. He just dropped off. It's terrible that we've got this communication problem, because I really want to talk to Bill. I'm gonna send him a message and encourage him just to call in by phone, and I think that'll work out a lot better. I just got a text from Tom Brady, literally. But anyway, let me just send Bill. Why don't you just call? Why don't you just call? Why don't you just call? And I'll put in the phone number, which is, how can I forget my own phone number here? 913 279-0831. So just call that way. We don't have to worry about any type of connectivity. So Bill, check your phone and just go ahead and call in. This is a call-in show. So if you just go ahead and call in, that way we'll be able to hear you. Now you won't be able to take calls, but or questions from the audience. I don't think you'd probably be able to hear the questions from the audience anyway. But I wanted to just go ahead and we'll tell them, hey, Bill, I don't know if you can hear me or not, but I just sent you a text message with the phone number to call in for the show. Perhaps if you just called into the show, it would be easier. So check your text message. Did you hear me? See, he can't even hear me. Hopefully he'll check his text messages and we will get him back on. But it's just simply not going to work, unfortunately, because it just won't work. It just won't work. Too bad, man, because this is a fascinating story. And the one thing I'm going to tell him is that we have, of course, he knows Gary. He does a lot of work for Gary. And my question is, why the heck hasn't he talked to Gary about doing this show? Why hasn't he talked to Gary about doing this show? I would really like to see this happen. And like Cynthia said, why don't we just go ahead and do it and make it happen? And I think we can make it happen. So we'll talk to Bill about that. If he's able to get a phone connection out there in the woods, he'll call in. If he's not able to get a phone connection out there in the woods, he probably won't. We're going to have to do some other things to get him on. But I am going to be going down there next week. I think Bill is in my buddy's area, and maybe we can put something together in person. But we definitely don't want to give up the ship yet because we want to hear about Bigfoot. This is amazing, ladies and gentlemen. And just the fact of what you've heard so far, you know that this is not your normal Bigfoot guy. Hey, Ken, what's up, buddy? Ken from C60 Purple Power, great supplement, is joining us in the chat room. Nice to see you, Ken. No, I didn't. His connection is just awful. We're going to wait and see if he calls in. If not, maybe we'll move into our Donald Trump program for tonight. Wow. I just wish that he could come, that he could get through, but it doesn't look like he's going to be able to. That's the way it is when you live out in the woods. We live out in the woods. Obviously not quite as deep in the woods as Bill does, but we've got to get this information out. And we will definitely get Bill back. We'll get him on a more stable platform, more stable communication, and we'll get him because this is very, very important. And I want to get Bill on to Coast, so he's got to have a landline that he can call in for Coast to Coast, or they won't take him on there. And I definitely want to get him back on. But right now, folks, it doesn't look like it's going to be possible. And we're professional podcasters, and sometimes things happen. And it looks like this time something has happened. So, I wondered why I went and I did this other show today. It's not something that I want to do. It's not something that I feel good about doing. But at the same time, I think that we have to be realistic. We have to be big boys and big girls. And we have to do sometimes things that we don't want to do. And we have to look at angles of things that we don't want to look at. And we have to, at sometimes, grow up, do things we don't want to do, look at information we don't really want to look at, and take stances and at least look at differing information than what really sits with our ideas that we have. Somebody says, could I call him? You know what? It's worth a try, isn't it? Let me call him. I'll call him through our contact information. That's a great idea, Jackson. Thank you for that. So let me get his phone number again. Let's get his phone number again. Bill Lee. Come on. Where's your phone number, Billy? There it is. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up our handy dandy Ring Central, and I'm going to see if I can't call Bill. So close. All right. So I'm going to call Bill, and I'm going to do my best not to say his phone number out loud because you don't need to know Bill's phone number. Let's see what happens.
Good evening, Jeffrey.
Hey, Bill. What's up, brother?
I apologize. This is country life for you, but at least I don't have neighbors.
Exactly. I know exactly how you feel, man. We're country people too, and we happen to just have a little bit better, I guess, phone or internet connection than you do. Can you hear me fine now?
I actually, you come in on two sources. One was via the broadcast loop, and then now just on the phone, so I got rid of the loop, so I didn't hear the echo. You hearing me okay?
We hear you great. We hear you great. So please, if you can, you just left off with an invitation for TV producers, and I just wanted to ask you, how come you and me and Gary and my wife and Quinn and some other professionals haven't already been out in the woods doing this?
We need to, and Gary, I wanted to give a hello out there to Gary, one of my favorite people, and also to Robin and Rob in Idaho. She follows you religiously and heard I was going to be on here and reached out to me after several years of not being in contact. So that was great. But we need to put something together because if it's approached the right way, I believe results can be had. But if I relay messages from them in my head, how do the people watching know that it's legit? Well, that's not the point. The point is that it's very, I don't want to say entertaining. It's showing people a way to approach them that they're not familiar with. They've been conditioned with finding Bigfoot, but this goes through the heart and not the head. Why not try? Because what results have those shows gotten? The Bigfoot bounty show on TV, what results have any of them gotten? A few tangible ones here and there, but if you want contact and they have a message and they want to get to our people, then let's give them a chance to do it.
Absolutely. And I've never had a good feeling about the Bigfoot shows. That's just me personally. And I've always thought that the worst way to try to find or make contact with a Bigfoot is to go out tromping around in the woods, because a Bigfoot would have to be blind, dumb, and injured to ever be found by a group of stupid humans in the woods. And I just don't understand the mentality of it. And I don't think, and I hate to cast aspersions on all of the quote unquote Bigfoot hunters, but I've never seen or come across any, Bill, with your perspective of not wanting to see a Bigfoot, shoot a Bigfoot, take a picture of a Bigfoot, be famous, but to communicate a message from a species that may be more ancient than us. And that is intriguing. Please continue.
It falls right into what I was going to mention about Justin Smeha, and if I've mentioned his name incorrectly, my apologies, but he had mentioned several years ago. Remember, this session I'm quoting from is 2013, so we're back in time about 8 years. Mm-hmm. But one of the 5 questions I asked Kathleen was, have you heard of a guy named Justin Smeha who claims to have killed 2 Sasquatch people a couple of years ago in California? And when Kathleen asks the Sasquatch people these questions, she will often receive insights and visions of her own while they communicate. And you'll hear me repeat these as I give their answer to this question. The Sasquatch respond, yes, we have. He would like everyone to hear of him. And in parentheses, Kathleen says, showed me huge shadow and darkness around this being, exclamation point. It would be good for him to stay where he is. He will be in big danger if he comes to find us. The truth will show and he will shrink away. There are many like him who try to fool. It is not important for you to know about this. Kathleen concludes, I couldn't get them to say any more about him.
That's interesting. And Bill, I remember this. Valerie K in the chat room reminds us, I don't know if you remember this or not, but back in when we were kids, the $6 million man Lee Majors was on TV, and they had a Sasquatch on there, a Bigfoot. And the Sasquatch was very sensitive, empathic type being. Unless he was threatened, he was a lover, not a fighter.
I can give you 2 examples I read just last night from the BFRO website from Pennsylvania. It happened in the late 90s. 2 bow hunters out. One of them is watching a Bigfoot from, if I can remember correctly, about 75 yards. The second guy in the hunting party looks at, they both see it, and the first one says, "We're about to make a lot of money." One of them hears in his head telepathically, "If you hurt me, I will kill you both."
Oh.
Only one heard it, and that's not the first time I've read a report where this has happened. The second report I read, and I think it was the BFRO website, the guy had done his homework and learned that when you spot a Bigfoot, if there's a second one there ready to do a diversion so the first one can get away, he'll make a noise. The second one will. So you turn your head, look at the noise, first one gets away. Well, this guy didn't fall for it. He'd read up. He knew what to do. He didn't fall for the diversion noise. He had the jump on one and was ready to take a picture. He kept ignoring the diversion noise until the bigger Sasquatch came out of the weeds, stood up between him and the smaller one, and telepathically told him, "Take the picture and I will kill you."
Wow. So this go ahead. I'm sorry. Keep going.
I've got one. There's 1 or 2 more I have of how they outsmart people unequivocally. Okay. Here's another one read, a BFRO report the other night. Story of man digging foxhole to get picture of female. A man had rented a cabin and had come to understand and know that a female Sasquatch would come by whistling at a certain time of the night. A weird, happy-go-lucky whistle. He had served in the military, decided to go across the road, spend some time digging a foxhole, get in it, and wait for his money shot. Well, 5 or 6 o'clock came. It wasn't dark. He goes and digs his foxhole. He's so quiet for 2 hours. The only thing he moved were his eyes. And it was so good and effective that a fox went by and didn't even see him. So it gets dark, and here comes that dang whistle. And he's waited over 2 hours, not moving at all, to get that money shot. And the second he raises his camera to do so, a male whistles from across the road he had never seen, that had watched him the whole time. And the male's whistle warned the female off, and she got away before she got in camera range.
Wow. And you said you had another?
Yeah, there's one more. This one, a couple was watching one from a distance, walking at a good pace, but not looking their direction. The husband and wife look at each other as if to say, but not verbally, like you would look at someone else, and the expression on your faces say, "What is that?" At that exact moment, the Sasquatch, without breaking stride, cocked its head and looked directly at them from roughly 75 yards out. So if you think about them and you think about going out and going after them, they are going to know the second you think that thought, because the thought highways that we all have are literal highways to them, like our roads are to us. And so if I'm told they're with me every day, why do I go out? Why would I go out and bang on trees and make calls if they're standing right next to me, like they proved they were one time and foiled a film I tried to do in the woods of one of their structures? Then it's foolish to go calling them if they're told they're with you every day. You know what I mean?
I do. And Bill, as I sit here and listen to you, my whole paradigm about the Sasquatch people has shifted. And you always say that term, Sasquatch people, and I think I'm understanding why now. Is I've always thought about the Sasquatch, the Bigfoot, the Skunk Ape as like some type of a lesser being, a prehistoric being, the missing link. And from what you're saying, it becomes very clear and apparent to me that it's very possible that the Sasquatch people are people that are more advanced than humanity. And here we are sitting here thinking we're at the top of the food chain. We're the most smartest people on this planet. And the fact very well may be that the Sasquatch could be a more advanced race than us. Do you get that idea?
They are, and one of the best authors on the subject, Kiwoni Lapsaritis, has books out, The Psychic Sasquatch and the Sasquatch people, they're the UFO and the interdimensional connection, things of that nature. And I have printed out a paragraph from what his wife, Kelly, then wife Kelly, received from a Native American in Canada, and his name was Sunbow. And the Sasquatch people, just remember what I said earlier, you can't cherry pick. Well, here's what they say in talking to this Native American in Canada, and I quote, "Our people, like yours, were bioengineered by the Star Elders, but we were born many eons before you were. Our conceptors added to their alien genetics the DNA of the most evolved and adapted species of that era, a giant lemur." BFRO report I read 2 weeks ago, the witness said this thing on all fours looked like a lemur crossing the road. I fell out of my chair.
Wow.
So back to adapted species of that area, a giant lemur now long extinct, just like they did to create your species much later, us humans, with the DNA of another evolved large primate that you call Anthropopithecus. This is why our genetics and yours are so closely related that our species can interbreed. This is also why your species and ours are the only two having spliced genes in this home planet. So we come from the same star seeds, making us relatives, but our earthly ancestors are different. So we are not your ancestors, but your elder brothers.
Wow. Bill, have the Sasquatch people and humans interbred?
Yes. I know of an account of a man who said he was taken by a female. Now, there's some comedy in this, but it must have been scary as hell for him. He said he was kidnapped by a female, taken to a pit she had dug that was deeper than he was tall, and she licked his hands to the point of making them raw so he couldn't climb out, and would come do him every day.
Wow, that is very, very interesting. Did he feel like he was being raped, or was it more kind, I guess?
I try to remember. I've almost read every Class A report in the BFRO database, and I'm working on Class Bs now. It's hard to find a report I haven't read, and I don't remember everything, but I try to remember the nuggets. I remember basically he did not like it. It was startling. And I can give you an account of a rape of a human by a Sasquatch, but she was only 13 years old, and it's heavy, heavy, heavy. But it's in a book written by Mary Green. It's 50 Years of Bigfoot. And the girl's name was not given for obvious reasons.
Right.
But in this story, she was walking home from a boyfriend's house and was jumped by the brother of the main Bigfoot, who would come accept food from this devoutly religious man for over 50 years.
Wow.
But the main Bigfoot's brother was not a good one. And it jumped this girl and raped her. And it messed up her head, not to mention her insides. And she had to go to a mental institution. And the author said, I would get in huge trouble if I mentioned her name. So that book tells you what life is like for 50 years feeding a family. How female Sasquatch killed a bull that was coming after a young girl and would have killed her if the female had knocked it to the ground and killed it.
Well, it just goes to show, Bill, that within all species, there's going to be some bad people, and I still of the optimism that the bad people, whether you're talking about humans or the Sasquatch people, are in the minority. At least that's my sincere hope.
they are, and there's some territorial incidents that have happened over the years in Alaska. I've been watching the Alaska Triangle lately, and I'm just eating that up. Do you realize that almost 16,000 people have gone missing in Alaska in 30 years? And at one settlement where outsiders, the white man, tried to settle, they couldn't understand why natives weren't there. And one by one, people disappeared and body parts started flowing down the river. And it was the local Sasquatches, I'll guarantee you, sending a message, do not come here. Even the natives knew not to settle it, but they tried it. And to this day, that settlement is abandoned.
So the Sasquatch will get, I guess the only word is violent if their territory is too much invaded, I guess, huh?
And it depends. The confusing thing is I can go out in the woods where I've gone, and I'll tell you what's happened to me. The two close encounters I've had were as benign as they come. 2 supermoons ago, I don't know, check the calendar. It was October sometime, so bright. I walk at 5 in the morning. It's dark. I'm on a county road right next to the woods. But I don't go in the woods because if the dogs run off like they always do in daylight, I don't want them hitting a pack of coyotes or something else.
Right.
And so I stay to the road. Well, I got excited one morning. It was that super moon. It was so dang bright, I didn't even need my flashlight. So I'm like, I'm going over there. I hop the fence and I'm walking on the right of way. For the first 10 feet, it's a right of way as far as you can see to the left and right because there's a water line and the woods are right there. And dogs went one way, I go another, and I'm going down to where I found all the tree structures I found over there that I know didn't get there by themselves. And I get about 70 yards, and I'm just walking along, happy-go-lucky on cloud 9 about the day ahead, going to do my voice work, this, that, and the other. And crack, this limb branch, not 40 feet from me. It was a bright, trebly crack. That branch didn't just happen to fall at that moment.
Right.
That thing was loud. It was deliberate, and I believe it was them saying, we never see you over here right now. This is a surprise. We're here. Go. But we know you, so that's all you're going to get is a limb breaking and not a roar. And the funny thing is, Jeffrey, is when I heard that crack, without breaking stride, I turned around, walking the other way with a big old grin on my face because I knew exactly what it was and that I had passed the test that I had set for myself should something like that ever happen. What would I do? And I did the right thing. I was respectful and I left.
And, that's the same thing you would do if you stumbled onto my property and didn't know it was my property. I'd give you a warning and you would respectfully leave. We just have to realize that there's some things that are not ours. We think we own everything. Bill, have you received any information from them? And you mentioned this briefly in regards to the connection with unidentified flying objects and the Sasquatch people.
Yes, they specifically addressed that. And I asked them that question. I said, what connection, if any, do you have to ETs? They replied through Kathleen, quote, we do not talk of this subject because the hairless ones do not understand how to stay in the place of heart. Most of the ETs, as you would say, Kathleen, I have to qualify that. She says anytime when she was doing these sessions, when she was alive in body, if she or I or anybody asking questions hit them with a phrase that they had difficulty with, if they have difficulty with some of our English words and phrases, they would pop it back to us and say, as you would say. So back to their quote. Most of the ETs, as you would say, are in the light. Remember, they said most. That's the key word.
Interesting.
They want to help the hairless humans. They want to help protect the hairless humans from themselves. We help them and they help us, but we are not the same. They are from the sky and the earth is where we are home. We have been here a very long time. The ETs have visited for many times too. They visit the earth. We live the earth. There is much to learn from ETs, but the hairless ones must be in the soft place before the learning can begin. The ETs understand energy, as you would say, in the same way our Sasquatch people understand energy. The hairless ones are just now beginning to learn of this energy. There is much to this, but we will speak of it another time. This is all for now.
Wow. So, we keep thinking about the Sasquatch people being primitive. And as far as being able to communicate with them, it's really our primitive nature and our inability to be in a place of heart that's preventing us from having further contact with this great people, or at least it seems that way to me.
That's what I learned. And Dr. Matthew Johnson, a psychologist, the psychologist who saw Bigfoot, he saw one literally disappear into thin air. And he was on TV in tears, lips quivering. And that gave me my awakening. And that's a whole different story about how I came out of nowhere, because I saw The Legend of Boggy Creek in 2, 3, 4,
Right.
whenever it came out. And I didn't give Bigfoot another thought until I saw Dr. Johnson on TV, although I didn't understand it at the time. Every time Paul McCartney's song, Listen to What the Man Said, came on the radio, because it was a hit during the 70s, I always thought of Bigfoot in a haunting way and never understood. And now that I'm an adult and that they're with me, they also claim I lived with them before as a Native American. Nonchalantly say that. But if they're with me every day, then that would explain why I always thought of them as when I heard that song, but I was a child and I couldn't make the connection. But anyway, when I saw Dr. Johnson on TV and talking about the things, there's Arlo Williams in Oklahoma. There are several people in this field who have had these types of experiences where normal people have been doing their own thing. The woman in Wisconsin whose husband took her to their cabin up north Wisconsin for 30 days every summer so they could get away from each other after so many years of marriage. And she's out there smoking a cigarette and sees another cigarette around the barn, and it get pulled back, and there are 2 thieves about to rob her. And then she hears a Sasquatch telepathically tell her, and these are my words, not theirs, I've got this. And she huddled in her house, doors locked, windows off, scared to death, and all of a sudden heard a loud scream and never saw the guys again. And the scream didn't come from the guys.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing.
Minding their own business. And then this thing helped her. There have been plenty of instances where they have helped people. And so what I try to figure out, and what confuses me, is it shouldn't confuse me. They're like us. They're people. There are good ones and bad ones. And that would explain some of the killings and people that have been killed, when people can now go out in the woods and they just get warned off. What's the difference between worn off and getting disfigured?
Well, Bill, they probably know the heart of that person. They understand and read the intentions and the energy.
That's a good point. And that intentions and energy, my dog, I've got a dog that's sensitive, that was homeless, and I've gotten angry in front of him before, and he has schooled me. My dog and the Sasquatch people have done more in the last 12 months to make me watch what I say and do, to be calm, because the dog never forgets. And I've not hurt him, but he reads my thoughts. And if I'm in a bad mood, I look over at him and I'm like, he knows what I'm thinking, and I know he knows.
Wow.
What the job they do for us. One lady who helped me when I had inspired by Bigfoot out of California, she raised horses, and she said, they're teachers. They're here to teach us. And I think that's fantastic.
That is amazing. Have you ever seen or heard tell of some people now are saying in this field that they'll see a green haze and the Sasquatch people will appear or disappear? Do you have any thoughts to the notion that they would either be going in and out of dimensions or portals, or might themselves be ETs? I think you've already addressed this somewhat.
Yes, and I've got some accounts of that from Dr. Johnson's experience up in, I believe at this time it was in Oregon. He's currently in Washington, but also a gentleman outside of Paris, Texas, who I interviewed him on my show, and inspired by Bigfoot back in 2013 or so. And he said he took his family, a wife and a child or two, into the woods at, quote, a questionable hour of the night. And he got the surprise of his life when they showed themselves. And he said this particular brand or band of Sasquatches were up from the Amazon, and his words were, they are pissed.
Wow.
They are pissed at us from what they're doing. And he said at one time there were 40 Sasquatches in a field shimmering in and out of view for him because of the leap of faith he took.
Wow.
And so, isn't that a trip?
That is a
And so
trip. That's a trip. Hey, do you get any sense that Paul McCartney knew about the Sasquatch people, or was that song just a connection for you?
You know what that song is? I was a DJ for 34 years, and I've given this a lot of thought in the last 6 months, because I'm like, I think I've connected another dot in my life that's a huge dot that I haven't seen for 50 years. And my theory is this. As a DJ, I can hear a song on the radio, and it will take me back to whatever station I was working at that particular time. And even if I wasn't at that station, I'd know that song was from a time period. And we all know where we are. It takes us to a place in time, a video or memory in our head.
Right.
And if I see a movie in 73 about Bigfoot and never give that a second thought until I see Dr. Johnson years later in 2000 on TV, why would I think of the Sasquatch people every time I listen to what the man said? I think it might be if I lived with them in the old days, as they said, as a Native American. They said that in the session, and the last session I had printed out. That shocked me to the core. I had no idea. But can I throw that out as a believer in God? I can't toss that aside. But I would hear that song, listen to what the man said. Maybe it was them telling me, listen to us. But as a child, how do you listen? How do you do something that weighty and heavy? You're a kid. You're worried about kid things, bicycles, candy bars, paper routes, baseball. And so I don't know why I always thought of them. But then a year ago, I just got to thinking maybe that was them cueing me through a song, something I could relate to. Because that's the only song that takes me to a place take me to a place in time. I don't understand why, but I always think of them.
Interesting.
It may be nothing. There may be nothing to any of that. I don't know. I just have theories.
Hey, Bill, they're another species. They're more ancient than we are. With your beliefs in the Bible and in Christianity, how would you fit the Sasquatch people into your theology?
What I tell people is it doesn't shake my faith in God. What happened to me in church, I'll tell you right quick. The same thing happened on the podcast when somebody in the chat room asked me, do you think they're watching over you? I started to explain, yes. Remember, I'm a professional public speaker, and I can speak in front of a room full of strangers about anything and not be rattled at all.
Right.
At all. It's just my gift. We all have gifts. And I start explaining that, and I start crying like I've done tonight. And I'm in church 2 years ago. I play bass for the praise group. I'm in a band now outside of church, and I haven't played in a couple of years, but I love volunteering because I had the gift. Well, as a voice actor, they would ask me to read scripture, which I was glad to do. I loved it. I was brought up in church. So I'm there playing a song. I stop on the bass, and I get to start reading scripture. Well, I had a selfish moment as a voice actor. I said to myself, I'm going to blow this congregation away with my voice. And God said, not in my house, because what happened when it came time for me to read, the exact same thing when I was hosting the podcast. I start talking for 3 seconds and boom, here come the tears. And I have to cry through the reading, which made it better than what I would have done. But because I made it about me and not God, he said, not in my house, and saw fit to make the same thing happen to me the next service, because they had 2 services every week because of the amount of people who came.
Right.
So here you have the same exact reaction in 2 different arenas. Ask if, but for different reasons, overcome by tears. And someone could say these were tears of joy. These were tears of them. It's hard to describe, but you know it when you feel it. And so the reason that they look the way they look is because they have to survive in the environments, but they are so much more advanced than us. And they say the reason it is that we used to be psychic, but they have not relied on tools, and our use of technology through the years has dulled that sense, because there are so many reports of someone who sees one or says they felt watched. So that tells you that if humans feel watched, that's like a remnant of once being psychic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, have they ever spoken to you about other cryptids? Somebody mentioned Dogman, the various other cryptids. Have they ever mentioned any other type of species to you?
No, and I wish, Kathleen Greavy Odom, the shamanic practitioner, God rest her soul, if she were still here, I am so much further along in understanding this subject than when I had her on my show. And I would ask her about that because I had a DJ friend of mine in Corsicana, Texas, have his office manager at the radio station drive home one night, and she saw a black stick figure, 7 feet tall, with a sheen on it that was, it was a stick figure like you would draw a hangman, but it looked at her and it gave her a creepy feeling when she went back and a sense of foreboding. And I think that was from another dimension. And Dr. Matthew Johnson actually opened up a portal to another dimension accidentally in Oregon after visiting a tourist attraction up there while Bigfooting up in the mountains. And I can tell you about that. I mean, it's the craziest thing, but it happened, and it's in a book he's written.
Bill, before you do that, have you met Gary's friend Mark that goes down to the crystal things down in Arkansas and sees people coming in and out of portals? Have you talked to him?
No, I haven't, but I've read Bigfoot reports where a guy was on a trail and he said it got foggy or hazy as if you were wearing someone's glasses you shouldn't be wearing.
Right.
And a hand pushed by his head and he heard "gotcha," but was able to jump back and was shocked at what would have happened if he had been driving along on a road in a truck at 50 miles an hour.
Yeah. And somebody mentioned that that being that you talked about sounded like Slender Man, the stick figure.
Wow, I've never heard of that. It took me by surprise, but Keith knew that I was into Bigfoot. So when people find out you're into that, the cool thing about that is anybody and everybody who sees something will bring it to you. And this woman was highly educated, very articulate, and she was also an artist. And she drew the funkiest looking thing. There are entities out there. It really, to me, it comes down to, are you of the light or not? And because of my happy-go-lucky nature, my loving heart, I've always felt protected and watched over. And that doesn't mean I could walk through Glacier National Park in Montana with stakes hanging from my side, but the Christians out there, I can't accept a lifestyle that requires me to fear. But I believe in God, and I don't believe there's going to be an 11th hour surprise when I pass over.
Interesting. The Bigfoot story, the Skunk Ape story that I shared with you at the beginning, give me your analysis of that. What do you think was happening, and what do you think was going on?
Did you say it walked across a road and did it appear to let you see it? Did it make eye contact?
Yeah, I mean, I was sitting in the car with this pizza on my lap, and I remember it was a sausage, pepperoni, mushroom pizza, is my dad's favorite. And I'm eating a piece of pizza, and crazy enough, I remember Paul McCartney was on the radio. It wasn't that song, but Paul McCartney it was Band on the Run was on the radio. And I look up, and at the edge of the lights, in the light, but not fully in the light, I see this 7-foot tall skunk ape, and he's looking right at me. And as he looks at me, he smells the air, because I'm like, oh shit, he smells this pizza. And I thought, and he kind of, I don't know if he actually came towards me or if he just like leaned, and I thought, oh shit. And about that time, my dad comes out of the woods from finishing, going to the bathroom. And the Sasquatch looked at my dad, and then he looked at me, and he just walked across the road into this particular highway has a great big huge median with big trees. And he wasn't in any particular hurry. He didn't seem upset. He didn't seem scared. He just walked, and I swear it almost was like he shrugged his shoulders and said, these guys aren't worth it. And he just walked away. As a Bigfoot guy like you are, one with knowledge of the Sasquatch people, tell me what was going on there.
He would know that you all were there probably before you were aware of him. Now I'm going to ask you a weird question. Was your dad going number 1 or number 2?
Number 1.
Okay. Because I would say if it was number 2, between that and the pizza, that poor Sasquatch's olfactory senses may have just been in overdrive with their sensitive sense of smell.
But Bill, now that you asked the question, I never asked my dad that, but he didn't just go stand by the edge of the woods. He went in, so maybe it was number 2.
it would have been one of those things where they will raise their head and smell. I would be willing to bet the pizza, because the pizza presented a smell he had probably not encountered, whereas waste is waste. I've never encountered sweet smelling waste.
Yeah.
And so if that's a pizza with ingredients on it, that, it probably presented a smell he hadn't smelled before, and that made him very curious. And then to see people, it's like, okay, different smell, people, this bears investigating. Oh, okay, they're no threat. They don't have guns. And but it's fascinating, because when they show themselves, it's for a reason. And he just wanted you to know he was there. And I've often wondered, when they show themselves, do they wonder why people don't come after a sighting in number looking for them? And it's probably because they know they're psychic. And I knew of an account in the early 70s of a guy who tried to gauge their fight or flight responses with a psychic or a map dowser, and they got their plan turned on its head. I don't know how we are on time, but
you're good.
I can do that in a minute or less.
Please do. Yes, please do.
Okay. Robert W. Morgan is not one of the four horsemen of Bigfooting, but should be. He's like an honorary fifth member, in my opinion. And he was in early on the research of these beings. And at one point, he came across a map dowser, a psychic, a water witch, whatever you want to call them. And they wanted to gauge the Sasquatch people's fight or flight responses. And in Washington State, they had located four of them high atop a bluff. They hadn't moved for hours, and they figured they were sleeping. The plan was for the map dowser to stay at camp and chart their movements once they stormed the hideout. And it was a 45-minute drive from the base camp to where they would get out of the van, charge across a field, and go straight up. And then the guy would map their movements with that map and his psychic abilities. And it sounds like a smart plan, right? Mm-hmm. Well, unless you're going after something that's psychic. So what happened is the guys did their 45-minute drive. They get out of the van, they cross the field, and halfway through the field, they run into what Ron Moorhead knows a lot about this, the invisible wall of fear. They couldn't take another step, literally frozen, scared to death. They haul ass back to the van. At that point, the map dowser comes screaming up in his truck or his vehicle and says, "You're not going to believe what happened. But as soon as you all took off to get to your drop-off point, that female and the young one started walking away from their location. And by the time you got to your drop-off point, she had gone 5 miles. And the two males, I charted them swooping down into defensive positions just yards from where you ran into that invisible wall of fear, anticipating their route and cutting them off."
So that shows me a few things. It shows their tremendous psychic abilities, and it also shows that they are, a decent and an honorable people, because they projected that psychic energy fear, that energetic fear, to stop those people when they could have very I don't know, maybe not easier, but they certainly had the option of just kicking their butts or throwing projectiles at them. But instead they said, no, let's just scare them off, instead of taking a more invasive and injurious type of attack towards them.
That makes sense too, and I've thought about that many times. And if they broke every person in half who crossed that line, they would have too many people after them. So it's something to remember that it's very fascinating. The Missing 411 series of books about people who have gone missing in our national parks with patterns that go back decades. David Paulides I've not read the books. I'd really like to, but there are patterns that are shocking in what they reveal in people that have gone missing. And he never says Sasquatches, but I'm here to tell you in some cases that is what's happened. The grandmother who went missing for a month, that was taken by a Sasquatch, brought back. She came back after 30 days, emaciated, said this thing killed a rabbit a day and tried to give it to her. She wouldn't eat it. The old lady lasted about 30 days when she found her way back home and then died.
Wow. Do you think the Sasquatch are killing numbers of people?
In some cases they do. I remember one guy, and I think it was Michigan, was found face down with his head turned around, facing down his back. Now, try to visualize that. No predator does that. And There are accounts of miners on the Idaho, Montana or Idaho, Wyoming border. I forget which, but back in the 1800s where one had a neck broken after they would lay their traps out all day, they would come back every day to find their camp torn up and huge footprints. And then you have Albert Osman, who's kidnapped for 5 days by a big male, taken back much to the female Bigfoot's chagrin. And it was a damn can of snuff that got him out of there when the big male downed it thinking it was food and ran to the water screaming. And that's when Al made his move, shot over the head of the female, hauled ass, and didn't stop for a day.
Wow. So, Bill, what is, as we wind this up, I've kept you longer than you agreed to, and I apologize, but what is the future for human Sasquatch people interaction, in your opinion?
They have said that they, in their own words, that they will reach out to those who are soft in the heart. The best thing I can do is I ask them the last question here. Dear Sasquatch, is there anything else you would like to say at this time? We are happy to heart speak with him. He is a good one, an old one. You have lived with the Sasquatch in the old times, Kathleen said, and now he is remembering. It is important for him to listen. He thinks he is listening to us, but he is listening to himself. He wants to listen to us, and now he will begin. We are happy he is talking to many hairless ones about us. We will teach him to be strong, to talk soft for us. We are with him every day. He is learning how to be with us again. We would like for him to visit us in the trees. He knows where to go. He must come alone. He must be soft in his heart. Tell him, Okanye. He understands and will understand the soft place in his heart. So the message to everybody listening is find the soft place in your heart. Don't rely on technology. If you're an animal lover, you're already halfway there. Seek them out in a way that makes it inquisitive without fear. And if anybody wants to contact me with help, they may be able to teach me something. I'd be happy to share anything I know. I don't know it all. I just have a big heart and like to communicate publicly about this because of what's going on. It bothers me that this lie is perpetuated in a day and time. Lastly, Jeffrey, that when lives matter gets thrown around a lot.
Yes.
What do you think the human race looks like as a whole to the Sasquatch people and to the alien races who are watching us when they watch us all virtue signal to each other, reminding whose lives are important, but yet collectively speaking, we don't even recognize them?
Wow. Why don't they just get together and take us over? Why are they trying to be nice to us?
I have read that there are agreements between certain races not to interfere in our affairs, but I know that there was a lady who did remote viewing. I had Lee Culver from Enigma research on during the Inspired by Bigfoot days, and he proved to me through his encounters about remote viewing. And there was a policeman from California the government used to remote view in Russia. And he described exactly what they had a picture of without seeing the picture. And then they had him do other work. But something funny happened on the way to remote viewing. He was drawn to a mountain in Alaska where there is an underground alien base. Well, this man didn't live to see old age because of what he knew. And the people who knew of his story got a woman who is also a remote viewer. And without telling her where this is, they gave her only coordinates. They said, tell us what's there. And she said, wow, this is a remote place. I see a lot of white. This is really remote. I see advanced humanoids in there working with humans. They're cunning. They're very clever. Ooh, we shouldn't be writing this down, should we? So there you go.
You know, Bill, I get the, last question, Laura wants to know, do they have what we perceive as an odd smell, the Sasquatch people?
Yes, and it's because their sense of smell is so good, they're curious. A report read just the other night, a woman was on a deck 10 feet tall. She said she couldn't believe it, but this thing made its way down and was underneath her, its head inches from her feet. And she said it was sniffing her. and another report from several months back, all of these from the BFRO site.
Right.
The guy and girl were in a park. She goes up to use the public restroom, sees something tall and hairy next to it, comes back scared. The boyfriend says, "Get over quick, don't turn around." Well, behind her, that thing was kind of dragging itself, trying to sniff her. And so the various smells, especially if a girl has perfume or if it's that time of the month,
right,
that got Timothy Trump, that those smells are intensified with animals. And so any one of a number of things that we introduce that they haven't smelled before could be a trigger, not necessarily a bad trigger, but make them curious.
Interesting. Yeah. And on a reactive level. And, as I continue to think about why I saw that, that Sasquatch person way back in the day, and I've always had this feeling, and this sounds crazy, but I felt it more towards what we would call vampires or even werewolves. And you wonder, does the Sasquatch people figure into the werewolf legends at all, even though they're not wolf-like? But I've always had the feeling that the humans aren't the only people that are displeased and upset with what's going on this earth and with the evil beings that are controlling it. And I've always thought that we will have allies and help from people that aren't humans, and that this will be a coalition of species and not just humans that will ultimately lead the good species of this planet to victory over oppression.
I agree, and that's very well said, and I think that's what it leads to, and it makes the journey fascinating, and I feel so enriched by it. I read those reports every night before I go to bed because I don't want to read about people, and the events of the last year have made me angry, and I've had to quit reading the news. Imagine being a news hound. I still take peeks. I admit I still take peeks, but not like I used to, and I'm tired of being angry. And so I read about the Sasquatch people, and I read these sightings, and I think, and the sightings I read, I'm like, oh my, it's just exciting. You're taken to that sighting and being in the middle of it. And so that inspires me, and I'm just honored that you would have me on. It's a pleasure, and I've been wanting to spread the word and talk about the message I have, but I'm not sure how receptive people would be to it, but you got to try, and I appreciate you giving me the platform.
Bill, we really appreciate you being here. I'm sorry that we had some trouble with the communications, but we need to do this again because I had the feeling we only scratched the surface, and I'd like you to come back at some point. We'll talk about when you can, and the sooner the better, and maybe you could just make some notes and talk to us about the messages that the Sasquatch people have for humanity, because I feel like our curiosity is we want to know about them, we want to know who they are, we want to know what they are, we want to know where they are, but something's telling me that the most important thing is to hear this message from an ancient race that is trying to give advice and suggestions and help to a younger race. Would you be willing to do that again at some point?
You bet. And I'll check into a webcam and indoor stuff. I just live in the country, and I'm on satellite internet. And so I don't know if satellite internet would interrupt the flow of what I could do in the house, but I could do it again the way we're doing now. Whatever works for you.
I think
the technology is great, but my message is the meat. The technology is the window dressing.
Absolutely. The best thing I think to do is do it, like we're doing now over phone. The only bad part is that we can't take phone calls, but we can just take questions in the chat. So with that, Bill, I want to thank you so very much for being with us, and I just encourage you to keep doing the work that you're doing, and we'll stay in touch, and we'll bring you back, and we'll get more. And I just feel like there's so much wisdom out there for humanity from the Sasquatch people, and I appreciate you being willing to share it, and anything that they want you to share, I want you to know that I'll do anything that I can to help spread the message from this great and ancient people.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the time. It's an honor, and I'll work on any of the technical stuff on this end and make it to where I love taking calls. That's the DJ in me and the interacting. So whatever we can do to make it work, I'll look into that. But I appreciate you having me on, and I'll definitely be happy to come back on. Just give me the heads up, let me know when, and I'll be there.
Great, Bill. And I'm going to get with Gary. I'll be down there next week, and I'm going to try to talk him into seeing if we can't figure out how to do something together, like you were speaking about with a TV show. Because I mean, it's not a coincidence that you and Gary and I are friends, and he's in the business of making TV shows. So thanks so much for being with us, Bill. And we'll go ahead. And, the phone lines are open. You know the phone number. It's right there, 913-279-0831. And I'll also put it here in the bottom scroll. So if you'd like to call in, Bill obviously is not here any longer, but I'm here, and you can ask me questions about tonight's show. You can ask me questions about any of the other shows that we've done. And as you know, it is open line format, and you can ask. You just have to be polite. You just have to be interesting, and you just have to get to your point. It's late night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Hi, Jeff. It's John in Tulsa. Man, you got me going. I got a story to tell you real quick.
All right, let's have it.
1959 in Russia, in the Ural Mountains, there were 9. They were mountain climbers that disappeared, and they were attacked. Supposedly, they don't know what happened for sure, but they were in their tents in a blizzard, and they were terrified of something, and they took their knives and cut their tents open and ran out into the blizzard in their underwear, and bodies were found scattered everywhere, and they were all killed, and their heads were crushed without any scratches or anything, like they were hit by a blow into the head. And they were also, chests were crushed also that way, either by the head, a blow to the head, or that. They were running in frantic fear. And there was a man who came over to Russia and remote viewed the situation. It's probably the same guy your caller was talking about. He was talking about a guy who went to Russia, the Russian mountains, and remote viewed, and said that these people were terrified. You could tell by everything, and that they were attacked by. They think it was Yetis.
Absolutely. And yeah, that sounds great, John. I mean, it didn't sound great, but it's a great story. And I think Cynthia really hit on something. And I think this is very important. And it shows a growth, I think, that instead of calling them Bigfoot, we should address them like Bill does, as the Sasquatch people. It's much more respectful. And I think that it would bring us better results. So thank you, Cynthia, at Sasquatch people. I understand. I think Yeti is it's not a German name, but I think it's, over there where Mount Everest is. I think it's a word from that culture. So we're not trying to say anything bad about that. We're just trying to give respect to the people. So by describing them as the Sasquatch people, then in that way, we might not piss off some great, big, hairy, strong being. And I'd rather not piss them off, if you know what I mean. So let's talk about them as the Sasquatch people. Thank you, Cynthia. I really appreciate that very much. And yeah, this is a great point. Bill talking about the news. We shouldn't read the news. We shouldn't watch the news. And some people are so ignorant that they're just so ignorant. And I'm not going to give them any press, but they're so ignorant. It's late night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Hi, Jeff. I have a question for the rods tonight.
Okay. And I have a question for you first.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever had any dealings with any Sasquatch people?
Actually, no, but I was walking through my neighborhood one day and I did see a Sasquatch and I got it on film.
Oh, you did? So you have had some dealings. All right. What's your question for the rods?
Call it that. Does the Rock Lake with the pyramids in Rock Lake, Wisconsin, have healing properties?
The rods say, yeah, pretty much.
All right. I'm going to have a barbecue on the summer equinox at the pyramids in Wisconsin at Rock Lake.
There's pyramids in Wisconsin?
Yes, sir. Lake Mills, Wisconsin. There's a place called Aslan right down the road.
Aslan?
Yeah, Aslan Burial Mound.
Huh. I'm going to have to look that up, Delaney.
pretty deep. It's pretty deep. There's a witch's tower right down the road from me in Whitewater also.
A witch's tower?
Yeah.
What does that look
Called-
like?
It's called Second Salem, Whitewater, Wisconsin.
No
Mary
shit.
Worth
I didn't know
was
that.
an herbalist. Mary Worth. She was an herbalist accused of being a witch. And they killed her and they split her apart and put her 5 parts of Walworth County.
Oh, that's so horrible. So horrible.
Yeah.
Delaney, always a
She's
pleasure.
like-
Always a pleasure to hear from you. I appreciate it. Wow, I learned some stuff I didn't know. Is this you again, John?
Hello?
Hey, John, what's up?
Yeah, one more call. I wanted to tell you something about me. I had Ingrams when I was real young, and that's why I love animals so much. I want to tell you what happened to me, caused those Ingrams.
Okay.
My grandfather was raised up in the Depression, and they had to kill animals to keep them to stay alive because they would come and rob their crops and stuff. But
Right.
I found, me and my uncle, and I was only about 4 years old. I still remember it though. We found a little mother in the garage with baby puppies, and I brought
Mhm.
2 of them to my grandfather, and he grabbed the puppies from my hand and slammed them on the sidewalk in front of me.
Ah,
And I was in tears. It just, broke me. And another event happened. That was an Ingram Terrier. I carried that a long time. I love animals.
Absolutely.
I treat them with all respect. And my father had been back from the war not too long, and I was about maybe a little older than that. But we came home one day, and we had a little acreage we lived on. We were renting it, and the dog got in and killed some of the chickens, smothered them. And my dad and my sister, he threw us in the car and grabbed the dog and took us out in the country and down the road. And he chased the dog out of the car and shot him with a gun right in front of us. And we were screaming. My sister was crying. I was crying. And the dog jumped back up in the car after being shot in the head in my lap.
aw.
And I'm telling you, I carried those memories for years. And
So horrible.
I could communicate to animals, and they could communicate to me. That's why I rescued those ducks and
Yes.
things. I do those kind of things. Anyway, I just wanted to tell you about that. Ingrams can affect your whole life, and it causes me. Anybody hurts an animal in my sight, I get violent. I will attack them.
Well, good for you, John. And sorry that you had to go through that. And, those were tough times. And, people do things they don't normally do in those type of times. But I don't know if it's ever, that type of cruelty is ever warranted. Just so horrible. And if you remember, John rescued a duck that had his feet frozen out on a lake, and it was a duck. The duck made a great recovery, and the duck lived in John's house for a little while, and then John took the duck back out. So John is a product of what he's saying. He really believes what he's saying. And I don't know if it was the pizza talk or what, but I'm really hungry. I'm going to have a snack after this show. I really am. Tomorrow night we'll have Mike King. We're going to talk about Joe McCarthy. Thursday night I think we'll do our Dark Trump piece, and then Friday night we're going to have our Friday Classic Conspiracies, and Friday night we're going to take a look at the life and work of Art Bell, and I also think that we'll take a look at the life and work of Bill Cooper. So we'll talk about both of them, and don't spam my chat with your religious comments because I'm going to throw them out. And we appreciate you just the same. It's Late Night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Hey, Jeff, this is Rex. How you doing?
Hey, Rex, how are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Want to congratulate you on weighing in on a really, you're incredibly brave to bring this to the market. Can I go off the deep end?
That's what we're here for, is to go off the deep end. So let me have it.
All right, and I'm doing this because your viewers are outstanding for the most part. So I was watching a series on TV. I'm sure some of you on YouTube. I'm sure some of your followers will understand. This is How to Hunt. It's a gentleman lives up in BC, Alberta, and he just a no bullshit kind of guy, straight ahead. And he has made a platform, a receiving platform, and centered on the topic of Bigfoot. Now, he's a hunting guide, he's a hunter, but he will sit there and read 1, 2, 3 stories of emails, and he says he gets hundreds of them every month. He can't possibly read them all. But one of these people that contributed was a First Nations man who kind of had a chip on his shoulder and said, you know, you white people, you just don't get it. And this is how to.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. It was kind of presented that way, but he said, and he was qualified. He was a genealogist in the field of medical study of genes. And he said, and his name was Dallas, if anybody ever remembers this episode. And he said, we've been trying, my people have been trying to tell you these beings have existed for thousands and thousands of years, number one. Number two, he said that they were a genetic hybrid experiment with male apes. They were not, this wasn't an authorized experiment by whoever.
Right.
Breeding with female Neanderthals.
Huh.
And here's the problem. We had 5 groups that were being studied as pilots, as the whole Homo erectus, Neanderthal, Cro-Mags, 5 different series were being studied. Now, I'm kind of bad-living getting away from his narrative. I'm supplying some other information. When
That's
the
okay.
beings that were doing these experiments, they were taking the first race that they worked on were the Cro-Mags as a prototype to eventually fashion a slave that would do their bidding. But anyway, when they created the first one, the Cro-Mags were so strong, so smart, so quick that they literally escaped from them. So then they dulled down the second one. And the second one was the Neanderthals. Now, both the Cro-Mags and the Neanderthals had what's called pin code DNA, triple spiral. It wasn't until the 3rd, 4th, and 5th experiment that this group removed the triple spiral. And that's why today we still have 2. So
wow.
Now you can see the power and the authority that this group of Neanderthal had because of their superiority in their DNA complex mix. Now that it's wild, but the offspring of the female Neanderthal were 10 code triple spiral beings who had the ability to teleport in some cases, to have telepathy. And because there was 4 families of great apes that on the male side that participated in this experiment, that's why you get some Sasquatches that have reddish skin. Some of them have black, raven black, tans, different heights, actually different physical characteristics. That was because of the 4 different families of great apes that participated in that experiment.
Very interesting.
I'm sorry, what?
That's very interesting. And also explains their telepathic abilities and their ability to, to communicate telepathically and, broadcast intention so powerfully. Very, very good stuff. Very, very good stuff. I appreciate that. It's Late Night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Hey, Jeffrey.
Hey, what's
Catherine.
up?
Hey, man. So, I haven't seen a Sasquatch, but I did see the Thunderbird.
I was thinking about you tonight. I was sitting down in the infrared sauna. I'm like, how the hell is she going to build one of these things? Because I was thinking I could use about 4 more panels right here so it would get hotter. So there's probably a way I can do that, right?
Easy. I'm getting a grow tent and then using infrared bulbs that are used for chicken brooder bulbs.
Oh, so you're going like old school with it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, and then you can clamp the lights wherever you want, so you can customize.
So you're telling me I could get some infrared bulbs in there that would heat, because I can only get to about 140. I want to get like 160 in there.
Yeah, I mean, they're like 250 waters. I mean, Tractor Supply and places like that will have it. Make sure you get the right, if anybody does this, you got to get a porcelain socket or it'll catch on fire.
Oh, yeah. I don't want that sitting in a cedar.
Yeah, and make sure you plug it into a hefty extension cord, because my ex tried to burn down the chicken coop with a cheesy cord. And
oh, no. Terrible.
Luckily I caught it. So.
You have seen a Thunderbird. Please tell us what the heck a Thunderbird is and tell us this whole story. Take your time.
All right. So a Thunderbird is a lot of people probably seen it. It's a native bird that's supposedly big enough to pick up a buffalo. And it was huge.
Yes.
Some people call them teratorns, and they do believe that they're in existence and are like dinosaurs. It looks like a giant buzzard, basically.
Okay.
So this bird was like, its wingspan was 35 foot.
And you saw one literally
in the light of day.
Wow.
Totally sober in my car. Now I will say that if other people had looked where I was looking, I think I was in a different dimension. I had asked for a sign about moving to Ecuador, and there it was. It looked like a giant triangle in the sky when it had its wings together, tip to tip.
Right.
But when it opened up, and I believe it was telling me a story. So what it was doing was it was spiraling down to the earth, all like to the last second, and it pulls up. And I don't know how many times it did it. I wish I had counted, but I was, my mouth was just like, whoa, like, oh my, what am I looking
Were
at?
you driving this whole time?
Oh, no. I was on a country road. I threw the car in
Perfect.
Parked when I saw the big black triangle in the sky, and I had asked for a sign like just moments earlier, and then there it was. So I believe what it was telling me, not only to try to go to Ecuador, which started a series of events that changed my life in a good way forever.
Excellent.
But also that even when it looks like it's the end, it is never, ever the end, because we're divine, sovereign, and free beings.
Right.
No matter what. And to keep the faith,
Did the Thunderbird try to communicate to you?
It was speaking to me through its movements. Animals speak to me, all kinds of animals.
And there's a there's a science of divination that is based upon the movement of birds, and I can't remember the name of it right now. But that's how Rome was founded. They decided where to put Rome based upon, it was Remus or whatever those guys were. One of them was
and Romulus.
Yeah, one of them was into the bird thing, and I can't remember the name of it. So that what you were experiencing is an ancient methodology of divination. So you definitely weren't off base. Have you seen any more Thunderbirds?
No, but hawks present themselves to me. I talk with spiders, and I've talked to a snake. And
You talk to a spider?
Yeah, I've talked to a spider.
Does he respond to you? Do you get a sense that he's actually communicating?
So, like in the case of some of these animals, it's like I get an idea of what the feeling is. It's not words. These words we use are like imprisoning. They're limited and limiting.
Yes.
And black magic, and so they communicate these sensations and feelings to me when I'm talking with them, and they also tend to do a lot of moving and dancing. The one
they're
snake
showing
was
off.
morphing the field, which apparently is it's like a kaleidoscope around it. I was seeing this kaleidoscope of like it was changing the reality around it to communicate a message to me that it wanted to live in my house.
So the snake was warping reality for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dude,
like
that's
a kaleidoscope.
amazing.
Like it kind of stuck its head through a kaleidoscope, and it was bizarre.
Did
I
you
was like,
bring it into the house?
No, because I cared for the little guy. He's just a garden snake. I was like, you can't, my cats will probably mess with you.
Exactly.
The dog, it's not safe for you. better to be outside in nature where you live.
Laugh Dancer says that she talked to a snake before and it responded. There's a story in the Bible about talking to snakes that didn't end up so well, but that's not true anyway.
Well, yeah, it sounds like a setup to me.
It does sound like a setup. So,
but, I will say, like, I just want to make a point, like John's story about his dad. I had things like that happen to me and a lot of people. And I look at that as it's a blood, mind control matrix situation that makes people want to do that to animals and children and innocents, really. And, I think our reckoning's coming on that. Like, we got to start respecting these beings, whether they're the Sasquatch people or just even even a spider,
Absolutely. And the Thunderbird, as I'm just sitting and remembering, when I was a kid, we played in this football league, and there was a team called the Thunderbirds, and I remember their logo, and it's actually a native peoples type thing, right? And they recall seeing these birds at least on a fairly regular basis back in the day, right?
Yeah, I mean, they can pick up a buffalo. That's how big this bird was that I saw.
Yes. And Tracy Dyer lets us know it's ornithomancy is the bird. Ornithomancy. That's bird divination.
Beautiful. I did not know I was a North.
You're an ornithomancer.
Ornithomancer.
You are. Wow. So add that to your resume. Add that to your resume.
Yes.
So I'm just going to ask you a random question. What are you? I mean, obviously you call in a lot. You're a person that thinks a lot. And I just have the feeling that there's something that you're supposed to be doing and giving to the world. Do you have an idea of what it is, and are you working on doing it?
I do, and I haven't released the site yet, but I'm working on a project with Brandon. Actually, he's helping.
Brandon.
Brandon.
Wow.
To get musicians back to work and throw patriot parties. Or a festival, and start to get people's music out there that isn't being tainted by the cabal and whatnot.
That's a great idea, because so much of the music industry is tainted by the cabal.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, maybe we can have you as one of the guests, because I want speakers, I want all kinds of people involved in these festivals. So
what we could also do, I mean, just suggestions. I'm very much in favor of it. We could even feature their music on this show if you'd like. We'd be glad to do that. And we're going to put together some events as soon as we get rid of this foolish nonsense that's keeping us from doing such things. And it'd be a great time to have some of your musicians around to do what they do.
Yeah, thank you. That would be great. I mean, we're working on new protest songs. Some of them are old, some new.
And every time we talk about having an event, why does the subject of naked fire dancing always come up? Always. Wow.
I don't know, but I'm not doing any of that. Oh, good.
So there you go.
Well, hey, it's always great speaking with you, Jeffrey.
All right, Catherine. Appreciate it so much. Take care. You guys are terrible with your naked fire dancing. It's late night in the heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
I don't know. This might be off topic a little bit. What do you think about Russell J. Gould and his whole situation?
My wife keeps telling me that I should have him on, but I looked at him a few times. I'm like, it just reminds me of that Seinfeld episode where Jerry saw his date, Poppy, haven't gone to the bathroom and making the pizza dough, and she tried to get him to eat the pizza. Jerry's just like, and that's kind of the way I feel about Russell J. Gould. It's just like, I don't want to do it, but my wife says that I should have him on, but I don't know. I just don't know. I've watched him I've watched him 3 minutes, and I can't do it.
Did you watch The Last Flag Standing, his documentary?
I didn't watch. I just 3 minutes, all I could take.
There's some pretty interesting stuff that guy.
But didn't he say like he's in charge of the world or something like that? He's in charge of the whole money system or something like that.
Well, he brought in. He captured the Title IV flag, the U.S. Title IV flag.
And you really believe he did that?
It's through the UN and everything. I mean,
dude, you can say that, but I have a hard time believing that guy did that. I'm sorry. I got to see some receipts.
Well, I mean, it's all there. There's a paper trail of everything. He came up with a whole new like periodic table.
Dude says he's king of the world. I got problems with the dude that says he's king of the world. That's all I got to say.
Well, I don't think he's saying he's king of the world. He says he's the Postmaster General of the world.
There is no Postmaster General of the world.
Oh, I understand. I'm just saying that he technically.
Dude sounds like he's crazy to me. He sounds like he's crazy to me.
Well, but isn't that kind of what we're into?
That's a good point. That's a good point. That's a good point. So if he's Postmaster General of the world, he's probably too busy to talk to me, but I'll think about it. It still is silly to me. I'm Postmaster General of the world. Bro, you don't even have a decent background. If you're Postmaster General of the world, why don't you have a decent background? Anyway, he sounds more postal than Postmaster General to me. I stole that from Tracy. I'll admit it, but it was a good one. All right. It's late night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Good evening, Jeffrey.
You sound like Dracula. Good evening.
Yes. I don't know what I missed because I muted the phone not to have the echo.
And I apologize so much. I didn't even hear your accent. You just said good evening, so I wasn't trying to make fun of your accent. You got a fantastic accent. I wasn't trying to make any fun. It just, the good evening thing struck me as being odd because I haven't heard anybody say that since Dracula. So I apologize. Please tell me what's on your mind.
Oh, don't apologize. I speak Strokanese, so it's kind of a different dialect of accent. So appreciate you noticing.
Oh, I love your accent, and I feel like an idiot, so I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
Anywho, I don't know what I missed with being on paused and not listening, so I don't have the echo.
That's okay.
But the great disclosure of Harry and the Hendersons. Everybody knows that Sasquatch is super soft-hearted, and that's kind of cool.
That is kind of cool, and I've never seen Harry and the Hendersons, but I know about it, and it just resonates so much what you're saying. I mean, they have been trying to tell us that somebody knows that the Sasquatch are kind-hearted, they're advanced, they're not just some half monkey thing running around in the woods naked.
I agree 100%. My daughters have been trying and encouraging me to go ahead and launch a YouTube channel.
Oh, good for you.
And after them doing it a little bit themselves to push me a little bit more, I think I'm about ready to do that. And I was wondering, I'm going to look for myself, but if there's any links in the feed or with the video on how to get a hold of Bill without having to search it up.
I'll ask Bill if he wants to make his contact information available. And if he does, I'll put it on my community site and I'll announce on the air his email or whatever as far as a way to communicate with Bill.
I would appreciate that because I'd like to bounce some things off of him as far as us soft-hearted individuals go.
Absolutely.
What my ideas are, and I just would appreciate that a lot. You guys rock. Keep kicking ass, brother. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll have Bill back on again real soon. Now, Queen Sloan says that she could live in the woods naked and totally would. But Queen Sloan, I'm thinking about like insects and I'm thinking about like cold and stuff like that. You know, I want to go out and do the plunge naked. I really do. I want to do the plunge naked, but we live in an area where people could see. I think we'd be better off if we got naked more, but you know, that's just me. It just seems like it's more natural. That's the weird hippie Jeff coming out. But Queen, I feel you. I hear what you're saying. And, you know, but we're just not at the place collectively where we can handle that stuff right now, I don't think. But it's an interesting thought, and thanks for sharing. I really appreciate it. What else we got here? We got another call. Angel Wings says she can body jump in other people's minds. Don't do it, Angel Wings. I've done it. You don't want to do it. It's late night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Hi, Jeffrey. How are you doing? Do you remember me?
I do. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I couldn't be better, except when you called. That made it even better.
Oh, my goodness. I just wanted to say hi and give you some love. And I really, I'm so happy that my husband introduced me to your show. And
me too.
You're just such an amazing person.
Well, I really appreciate that very much. And it's always great to have amazing people like you and your husband watching the show. And I encourage both of you to keep doing so and call in more. We really appreciate what you talk about, and we appreciate hearing from you. Anything else on your mind?
Do you still use your rods?
I do.
You do? How often?
Just about every night. Do you have a question?
I am a psychic medium.
Oh, well, so you know what I'm doing.
Have a question, I can help them out too.
You know what I'm doing. Do you ever do like YouTube shows and stuff?
Actually, I should have a YouTube.
You should have a YouTube.
I totally should. I find my kids finally started school 2 days ago.
Oh, good
back
for you.
to school. I've been homeschooling them since 2020, constantly homeschooling them. So it's kind of nice. And it's like, whoa, what do I do with my time now?
Absolutely.
You know?
Did you happen to catch my first dabble into mediumship with the Bill Hicks show that I did?
No, I haven't, but I would love to see it.
So I actually acted as a medium, and we talked to Bill Hicks, and it was really pretty interesting. Pretty interesting.
That's cool.
Yeah, and I may do more of it. It still bugs me a little bit. It's a little bit odd, but it was interesting.
Yeah.
It was interesting. Do you have any suggestions for me?
Keep being you, baby.
Hey, I appreciate it,
Keep
sweetheart.
doing your thing.
Take care, and all our best to you and your husband.
Stay positive.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. The Bigfoot saw me yesterday, but no one believed him. Oh, I see. Mad Cow Perkins with a little humor. I like a little humor. Even Dyer LOL'd at that one. It's late night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Hey, Jeff, it's Get Dagger. What's going on?
Get Dagger, what's up? I heard you have a Wookiee story?
Well, I don't know. That's what I said the other day. I was going to call in with it. I said in the chat, it's more of a tale than a story.
Oh, okay.
So I grew up in southern Ontario, but I had a cottage in northern Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
It's known for its old growth white pine. It's Tamagami, so there's a lot of forest. So where my cottage was, which we ended up moving to, it's like the middle of nowhere, so no neighbors and just pure forest. So my buddy came up for the summer. So he came up, and we used to listen to Coast to Coast. He's like, let's go Bigfoot hunting. So like, all right, I don't even know how old I was, maybe 12, 15. I forget how old I was.
Was alcohol involved?
I don't think so, but I don't know if I was old enough, but might have been. But he had a better memory than I do, I think. But so we cross the highway, go into the woods, and we're walking, and we're just like, did you hear that? Did you hear that? And we're like, we just kept going deeper and deeper, and then we started hearing some really weird sounds, like sounds I've never heard before.
No way.
So we're like, yeah. So look at my buddy. I'm like, I don't know. Should we go any further? Let's go a little further. I'm like, yeah. I was kind of like, I'm not a wimp or anything, but those sounds were like something I've never heard before. So anyways, we got closer. They were getting a little louder, so we turned back and ran. So I just want to ask the Rods, was that Bigfoot that we heard in the woods all those years ago?
It says yes.
Oh, there you go.
It was the Sasquatch. It was the
So
Sasquatch.
that's the thing that we ran.
So you and Laugh Dancer are right. I appreciate it. Thanks for calling, Get Dagger. That's awesome. That's awesome. Let's see. Organic Intelligence met Bill Murray. We had a Caddyshack reference. So that came in, and that RJG guy does seem like he's off a cat. I'm sorry. He's nuts. I'm just going to say he's nuts. Cynthia's asleep right now, so I can get away with saying that. I think he's cray-cray, but that's just me, ladies and gentlemen. That's just me. Am I missing anything here? We got a message here. What is this? I have a friend up in Windsor. She told me the story. Oh, we got Susan is giving us a Sasquatch story. Hold on. I see your call. I have a friend in Windsor. She told me the story the night she saw a red Sasquatch. She said her father used to talk about them as though they lived in the woods near their property. If you're going to Warrensburg to see the Tartarian buildings, I am. You'll want to go to the Amish stores in Windsor. Maybe you'd like to talk to my friend Debbie. Absolutely. We'll put Debbie live. Oh, I can't wait to do it, Susan. I'll get back with you on that. That's awesome. And it's Late Night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Hi, Jeffrey. I had something strange happen last night. I was baking a carrot cake while I was listening to your show with headphones on.
Okay.
And I was all done except for the last stage. And I turned around to do I sifted the flour and it was all flat. And I remember noticing how it looked it was just really flat. And I turned around, I did the eggs and I turned back around and something put four like prints with fingers that were little baby fingers that had sharp fingernails, made little feet prints in my flour.
No way. Really?
I swear to God it happened. I had to go get my roommate. Like, what is
you sure
this?
It wasn't a roach or something?
No, I took pictures of it. We looked all over. We couldn't figure it. It was 3 different size footprints. And they had 3 balls, like three pads. And it was almost like a lotus, but the fingerprints, you could tell it was with fingerprints and the fingernails were sharp and pointed. I'm
thinking Faye. What are you thinking?
I don't know. What did you just say? Because I don't know what to think. This is
no Faye, like FAYE, the gentry.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no thoughts except this is not right, and I don't even know what to do to proceed from here to get what to think. I don't know what to
Well, first of all, I wouldn't be afraid. You don't sound afraid. I wouldn't be afraid.
Yeah, no, I'm not afraid of supernatural things usually ever, but it seemed there was no situation that would have brought that in that. I'm like cooking and happy, and there was nothing.
Well, you were listening to me. Maybe, they were just wanting to. I'm thinking, what? Let me see. So, was it the Fae that left the footprints? That's weird. One said yes and one said nothing. Was it the Fae? The rods aren't saying anything about the Fae. Do you have any idea?
I've had a poltergeist here in the house for 15 years. I've lived here, but it's just just throws things across, and it's.
Has he ever hit anybody?
Things. What?
Has it ever hit anybody with anything?
No, my roommate didn't believe in ghosts when he moved in, and he was washing dishes about a month ago, and the cupboard opened, and the dish floated in the air, and it danced across the floor, and he's like, "Okay, I believe now."
Wow.
We woke it up in the middle of the night and had things thrown across the room, and they had glass things that were thrown far, and nothing broke.
Why don't you tell it to leave?
Well, I just didn't. I don't. So far, it has never done anything that bothered me. I was kind of to let it move on. But I figured we live in a place that probably has an Indian burial ground. It's like, I find a lot of weird things in my backyard that buried, and I just, I
interesting
story here to my.
Have you ever seen any Thunderbirds?
No, I have not seen
Sasquatch.
I've seen a lot of strange things, but not that one. Nope.
No Sasquatch. Never heard anything that could be a Sasquatch?
I had my life saved twice in 2 different states by what I thought was an angel, but it was wearing like a black trench coat, and it was before I saw the movie Michael. So I don't know.
Oh, dude, it was like a shadow man saved you.
Yeah, it looked like an angel. It was all bright white. It was really tall. It was talking to me with its head, with its mind, and it looked beautiful.
Are you an attractive woman?
I was then.
A lot of times, shadow men will come to the aid of beautiful women.
Oh, yeah. My grandma was religious, and she told me it was the angel of death because it wants me to live longer, suffer longer by living longer.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. So you turned around, and when you turned back, there was footprints or paw prints in your flour.
Yep. And there was 1 baby one, 2 middle-sized ones, and 1 big one right in the middle.
I'm going with the Fae, the gentry on that one.
Okay. Yeah, I've never heard of what that is. So
the fairies. They don't like to be called fairies.
Oh.
The Fae, the gentry, the wee ones.
Yeah, it seems playful, so I never.
Yeah, and the gentry are very playful or very mean. If you're if you're a mean person. So you sound like you're a nice person, and I think the Fae were just having a little fun with you. And I think the Fae like me, so maybe they were just being playful because they heard that you were listening.
Well, thank you. I just didn't know. I couldn't put thoughts to it. I was up all night trying to figure out what was that.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't be afraid of that anyway.
Sure.
They're mischievous. They're tricksters. The gentry they are. So thank you for that. That's a brilliant call. Thanks.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye. Wow, ladies and gentlemen. So we had Bigfoot and little baby tiny foot. Bigfoot and teeny tiny little foot. Oh, we got it all right here, ladies and gentlemen. We got it all. I hope that made you LOL. It's Late Night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Howdy.
It's Laugh Dancer. What's up, Laugh Dancer? Thanks for the prompt on the Wookiee story. That was a good one.
Isn't it? I just thought that was so sweet. Because, I mean, Get Dagger's got a good heart.
He does.
You know that the Wookiees are probably wanting to say hello.
Dude, Mad Cow Perkins has lived off the grid in the woods for over a decade. She's seen orbs. She's woke up with a snake crawling over her feet, but she's yet to meet a Sasquatch person. Huh. How about you, Laugh Dancer? You ever seen a Sasquatch, heard a Sasquatch?
No, but I've always been attracted to that. Like I used to study about the Yetis and the Sasquatch, and one of my dear friends who I tried to hook you up with to have him come on and speak. He used to study these fringe stories or whatever you want to call them. And he came across some interesting information. He came across an article about some hunters that killed one.
Right.
And were putting it on display. And I think it was in like San Francisco or something. And that story kind of disturbed me.
Yeah. Rightfully so.
And then there was another story about this woman who she claimed that she was how shall I say this? Impregnated by a Yeti.
Really? Well, we've heard, Bill talked about them getting frisky around people.
And her, the child that she gave birth to was giant, and he had a strange looking face. He had like a very slanted brow.
Interesting.
And like a big eyebrow ridge. Kind of looked, what do you call them? Not Cro-Magnon, the other one.
Neanderthal. With the prognathic brow is what that's called.
Yeah, and he just did not look like, it was in China, I think, or Tibet or something, and he didn't look like anything like the other people, except for his skin color and slightly slanted eyes, but he was giant compared to his mother.
Wow. Tracy Dyer woke up a couple of mornings with creepy bony hand grips on her wrists. Weird, huh?
Oh, yeah.
And Doug Stack, who's a former over-the-road truck driver, preferred driving at night. He's seen a lot of shady things in his travels. Doug, I'd love you to call in sometime and share those with us. What else is on your mind, Lap Dancer? We got 1 minute left in the show.
Can you ask the rods a question? I would like to ask them if the gentry are RH negative.
No answer, no response.
Can you ask if I'm gentry?
Ask it again.
Am I part gentry?
It says yes. That wouldn't surprise me.
Okay.
That wouldn't surprise me. Very, very interesting, Laugh Dancer. Thanks for closing us out with a bang. It's a little late. I'm sorry. I know that we didn't get to all of the calls tonight, but we'll be here tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Central Time, straight on through till midnight. And tonight, we want to thank Bill for being here. He was tremendous. Bill will be back. We want to thank you for all the great calls. Thank you for all the great chat. We only had to ban one bitch tonight, so hey, there we go. Christina's got fingerprints on the back of her arms. That's rough. Thumbs up, thumbs down on the way out. Please. We appreciate you. Subscribe, tap that bell twice. Please subscribe and tap that bell twice. Lots of people saying it's a great show. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. It's late night in the Heartland. And I want to thank you for making my day. Thanks to Bill Lee. And thanks to all of you.